do have a quorum, I think we'll go ahead and get started so we can get moving. So welcome to the Tuesday, June 15th, 2021 meeting of the Parks Advisory Commission. This meeting is being held electronically to protect public health and safety due to the COVID-19 virus and to comply with orders issued by the governor, the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services, and/or the Washtenaw County Health Department. We intend to conduct this meeting similarly to an in-person meeting. However, please be patient if there are technical issues. Public comment will be via telephone only. To speak during any of the public comment opportunities, please call 877-853-5247 or another of the published numbers and enter meeting ID 949-7173-0458. This information is also available on the published agenda in the public notes section of the city website and on the broadcast of this meeting on CTN Channel 16, AT&T Channel 99, and online at www.a2gov.org/watchctn and select government channel. Next, we'll move on to the roll call, which Colin will do for us. When you state your presence, please just remember to also state your location where you're attending this virtual meeting from. So Colin, go ahead.
Commissioner Morrison.
Present, attending from Ann Arbor, Michigan.
Commissioner London.
Present, also in Ann Arbor, Michigan.
Commissioner Marson.
I'm present and I'm in Ann Arbor.
Commissioner Smith, not here. Commissioner Borgsdorf.
Here, Ann Arbor, Michigan.
Commissioner Ramaswamy. Commissioner Skyless.
Here, Ann Arbor.
Commissioner Kraut.
Ruth Kraut, City of Ann Arbor.
And Commissioner Apple.
Here, also Ann Arbor.
And Councilmember Grand is not here today. You have a quorum.
Thanks, Colin. Moving on to approval of the agenda, which was included in your packet. I do have one addition to the agenda under Commission Proposed Business. We're going to bring up the topic of a potential renaming of Belize Park, and Colin will be able to provide an update for us on some research that he and staff have done on that topic. So adding potential renaming of Belize Park under Commission Proposed Business. Does anyone else have any changes or additions to the agenda? All right, moving on to our first public comment period. Kristen, do we have any callers for public comment today?
No callers have indicated.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to the approval of minutes from previous meetings. So reminder, we did not meet in May. So attached are the minutes of the April 20th, 2021 PAC meeting. Is there any discussion or a motion to approve?
I'd move their approval.
All right, okay, motion by Steve and seconded by Ruth. Great, any further discussion? All in favor of approving the April 20th, 2021 PAC meeting minutes, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Okay, minutes are approved. Thank you. Moving on to presentations. Our first presentation is regarding solar at the parks facilities. And I'm excited to welcome Dr. Missy Stultz today. Currently, Missy is from the Office of Sustainability and Innovations. She's also a former Parks Commissioner herself. So do you prefer Missy or Dr. Stultz?
No, Missy is great. No, Missy's great. And I had to go get my my pack. Exact nameplate.
That's very, very nice. I don't have one of those at home, so you're ahead of me. But I'll turn it over to you.
That's great. Well, thanks so much, Chair Morrison, and thanks to all of you for your service on PAC. I'm super excited to be with you today to share a little bit about, I know we've talked a little bit in the past about A20, but I'm going to tee up a little about what that initiative is and what we're doing around solar. And Colin's going to keep me on time because he's really, really good at making sure I don't. So let me just open some slides quickly for you all. Just for some visuals, because why not? It's not like we spend all day on Zoom. Why not do it some more? So just be a fun show of hands, how many of you have heard of A20? Colin, I'm really proud to see your hand up. That's great news. Okay, for those who may not know, A20 is our community's climate and equity plan that centers on how together we're going to create and implement a just transition to community-wide carbon neutrality by 2030. It's passed by council a year ago as of June 1st. So we are a year old. And we often describe this as an audacious plan that's absolutely essential when we look at the realities of climate change, inequalities in our systems, natural disasters, et cetera. So the plan itself is living. It will change, but it's centered around 7 overarching strategies. And those are the parallel strips in here. And I don't expect you to read that by any means. I just kind of want to give a little bit of the background. So the 7 strategies we often talk about as being the foundation, or perhaps even the scaffolding around which the actions are built. And each line represents an action. There are 44 actions in the plan, and combined, these activities get us towards our goal, help us achieve carbon neutrality. And the actions that we're going to talk about today really center on powering our electrical grid with renewable energy, which is strategy 1. Again, these are the kind of scaffolding, the foundation, if you will, upon which everything else is built. And so when we think about that, it's pretty straightforward. We need to make sure that when we turn on our lights, the electricity that's flowing into that system is from solar or wind or geothermal where relevant, and not from coal and natural gas and other energy sources. We also have to do things in these other strategies you may have heard us talk about before. We've got to switch off of natural gas, coal, propane, where we can. We call it beneficial electrification over to that renewable electric that we're moving towards in the system. And of course, we have to do energy efficiency, because the most effective way to lower our energy consumption and our greenhouse gas emissions is to reduce the amount we use in the first place. The thing that's different is that we have to do all of those 3 energy strategies together. At one point in time, we did have time to do efficiency first, followed by electrification, followed by renewable energy, or you can flip them depending on what the strategy was. Right now in the office, we're focused on how we pair them together and how we create models that make this financially and from a health perspective, really, really viable for all of our residents and businesses. The 4th strategy centers on the way we move, our land use patterns, and the vehicles that we use. And that was the goal of reducing our vehicle miles traveled by 50%, which the pandemic proved was possible unequally. Let's name that, right? Many of us are capable of teleworking. Many of us are not capable of teleworking. So there's not equality in that system. But I will say this was always the one, if you've ever heard me speak, I say this all the time. This is the one that scared me because it's so behavior driven in terms of getting out of vehicles. And what we showed is that actually we can do that. So this is, again, land use and how we move within our community. The 3rd is basically moving towards a circular economy. So changing our relationship with stuff. What happens to this bottle when I'm done with it? It's still got a lot of useful life in it, just maybe not as this bottle. And so how are we putting it back into circulation within the community? Same thing with, our pocket friends that we all have. This has a lot of material in it that can go for really good use and purpose. So how are we keeping that in circulation? The 6th is the reality that the climate already is changing. And so we have to do everything we can to mitigate and reduce greenhouse gas emissions. But we also need to invest in the resilience of our people, our place, and our ecosystems. And then the last is cross-cutting. And these are activities that belong in every strategy. They don't belong in just one. So these are specific callouts for community engagement activities and equity work and a grant program that we run. So this is A20 kind of as a whole. And again, there are 44 actions that fall out of that. I'm going to focus on one, which is the on-site renewable energy generation with storage. So when we do this work, we do really want the city to be a leader in moving these initiatives forward. Sometimes we're not, honestly, and sometimes we have opportunities to be. And this is one of those opportunities where I think that we can lead or perhaps catch up with some of our residents who have been leaders in renewable energy generation. So the backstory here is that we did an assessment of municipal facilities, and we looked at the roofs and we looked at the solar potential of all of those roofs. And then we looked at the sites themselves. And we said, okay, well, the roof may not make sense, or the roof does make sense, but the demand that this building has is greater than what could be generated on a roof. Maybe we should look at the ground. Maybe we should look at solar carport. What's possible at our sites to meet municipal energy generation through the use of renewable energy? So we did some calculations as staff. We did some analysis thanks to the extraordinary team at Park and other units within the city. We came up with a list of 13 sites, and we put an RFP out on the street. We said, these are the 13 sites. We want you to bid on developing solar at those sites. And we want to see your designs. And we want you to give us 2 pricing proposals. One is a direct buy. We're just going to put the money down and we're going to own this asset day one. Does anyone on the team, the second option is relevant for a second. It's a little complicated, but I just want to see, does anyone on the line have solar in your house? Okay. We have, well, if you would like to go solar, please join our Solarize program, and I could talk to you more about that at an alternative time. Right now in the US, we have a federal tax incentive, which is a 26% tax incentive that you could get off the cost of solar energy. Of course, you have to be a tax-paying entity, and that helps significantly lower the cost of solar. Well, we don't pay taxes as a government. So we said, okay, let's do a direct buy option, and let's do a finance option, which would help us if we don't have the money up front. We can't put how many ever millions of dollars this will be, and it won't be, don't worry. That was just to scare you, so I could then excite you when I pull back the number, whatever the cost is. How do we, if we don't have the money up front, let's finance it. And how do we do that in a way that capitalizes on that federal tax incentive by using individuals who are investors, who have the need to capitalize on that tax incentive and pass some of those savings on to us. So we asked for 2 pricing proposals. Here's the great news. A number of park sites are in. So you may have heard I said 13 sites. What ended up happening is we did have 13 sites, and then we got the proposals in and it spread. So now we're up to 17 sites at the city, which is super exciting. The possibility of about 2.5 megawatts of solar being generated. And so here are the 12 park sites that we are planning to move forward into final design with. So where we are in the project is the 2 firms we're working with to try to get them to do final design. They did preliminary designs with ideas about where things might be. And some of those designs were great, good to go. Other designs were like, well, what if we move it over here? Or what if we add more, because you can actually go further into that space? And so what we're doing is trying to get to final design. We're working at contract process right now in that. But here are the sites that are up for department. And this will be my true test off the cuff if I can do this. We've got Argo and Gallup. We've got Mac Pool. We've got the Burns Senior Center, the Farmers Market, Cobblestone, and actually we cheat. Cobblestone's got 2 different sites just based on how meters function. Leslie and Huron golf courses. We've got Buer Park and Vets. Colin, what did I miss? Fuller. I think I missed one.
Leslie Science and Nature Center.
Leslie, of course, Leslie Science and Nature Center. Thank you. Yeah, that's key, which is in the bottom, hiding. Okay. So those are the sites that we're considering. And I'm really excited to say that some of the sites, we'll come back with designs when we get final designs, happy to come back. What we're looking at right now is a combination of viable roofs. Pretty much that's a given where we can do them. Something like Vets has a really beautiful roof. There's nothing on the front of it. We can get quite a lot of potential generation on that site. It's also facing the right way. It's just a really well situated roof. So we're going to maximize roof space. At some sites, we're also looking at perhaps awnings, whether those are extensions of buildings that could provide covered seating for people, or whether those are carports that could maximize coverage. Obviously, we have more solar coming in where we have really big parking lots. But then you also have the perk. If you're coming out of the ice rink and we just had a snowstorm dump, you have covered parking. That could be a staff benefit. It could be for our public who's interacting and enjoying our park sites. And then the last is we are looking at a few sites, some ground mounted systems where there's not conflicting uses on those. So as you can imagine, those are the ones that are really being negotiated a lot more in terms of where we might put something so it doesn't conflict with existing uses. So it's pretty exciting stuff in terms of what we're looking at. And the park sites themselves have the potential to generate I believe we have to get updated numbers, but close to a megawatt, which is really significant. To give you a sense, the city as an entire entity uses 24 megawatts. And remember, we have a water and a wastewater treatment plant, which use the vast majority of that energy itself. They also are on the list for what it's worth. So just to give you a sense of the process going forward, we're working on final designs and costing over the summer and into the fall. In the fall, we'll have final price go to council for approval to spend those resources. And then hopefully installation starts in the fall, spring with completion in early summer. The last thing I do want to raise is financing. Just to kind of make this super explicit, we are exploring 2-3-ish options on how to fund these. One is, like I mentioned before, a direct buy, and that could go one of two ways. We could look at reserve capital from parks and invest this in the program itself, and then you start instantly seeing the recurring savings. We're also looking at the American Rescue Plan and using some of those resources as a possible way to make this investment so you instantly get the savings without having to go to reserves across the city. So that's a decision that will be administrative, and we're kind of working through a lot of different variables. If it goes that direction, we won't be coming back for formal approval of the budget, but we would be coming back to talk about a letter of support or a resolution of support. If it comes from the reserves, then we would be asking and exploring that with you if that's good use of dollars. The third option is this financing. If we choose to move forward with a financing proposal, I don't believe we have to come back for formal approval of that, but we would certainly come back to share the final designs, and that was the path forward. So lots of fun stuff moving. I just want to do a special shout out to Colin, to Scott Spooner, for all of their help and support in moving this forward. And then I'm going to just ask Colin, what did I forget?
Well, I don't think you really forgot anything. I'm really excited just to see this moving forward. It's been something with the recreation facilities that we've been interested in for a long time, and having the Office of Sustainability able to kind of spearhead the process in the way that was described to you by Missy has really helped move this along. I think the big thing for parks every year as a part of our budget, our utility costs for electric are about $300,000. So, I mean, it's a significant amount of money in the budget goes toward that. That has to be paid for out of the general fund. It is not eligible for the millage specifically called out. So this would, if we're able to get all of this installed and realize that type of annual cost savings, I would certainly hope that we could see some of those cost savings deployed for other needs within the parks. It's not like there's not $300,000 where it couldn't be spent in a more productive fashion. So, you know, it's the right thing to do for the sustainability goals, for environment, and also operationally can help us, I think, hugely as we move forward.
Does anybody have any questions? Yeah, Ruth, go ahead.
So I have 3, questions / comments. First is I'm happy to see this moving forward. We put solar on our roof early in the pandemic, and I've been quite happy how it's been working out. One caveat about that is that, well, obviously the sun is a lot lower in the winter, but if there's a lot of snow, we're basically cut down to 0. So I would like to see a plan for, at least on some of these, how you could get the snow off, because so that's one thing maybe you can think about or answer. And then I'm also wondering, and this might not be you, Missy, it might really be Colin, because it's a slightly different issue, but I guess I'd be interested in hearing about plans for electrification of our parks vehicles.
Yeah.
And maybe using some of the, especially if you're using stored batteries, maybe it's feasible to use them for that.
Yeah, so I mean, I can certainly talk to kind of the vehicles we have. Again, with Office of Sustainability, there's program in the city called Green Fleets. And as our equipment comes up for replacement in the fleet fund, at that time, there's a committee that evaluates if the machinery or if the equipment can actually be replaced by an electric equivalent. So when it can, it is. We actually replaced one of the mowers at the golf course the last time through, kind of had a hybrid option. So that's the route that we went. As the equipment becomes available, that's what we're moving toward for sure.
Yeah, I would just to share that we just hit a milestone in the city's fleet where 10% is now electric, whereas 2.5 years ago when I started, we had 0. So we're making strides. And as more things become available, more product, we're just going to have more use cases. What you've seen in the fleet is it's light duty vehicles, right? Because really the Chevy Bolt was the primary product that we had on the market. With Ford announcing the F-150, that's going to help a lot of use cases, especially in parks. Now we're going to be able to transition in. So we're actively working. And in fact, we have correspondence with the OEMs, the manufacturers of these vehicles right now, trying to figure out when things are going to hit the line so we can get ahead of ordering and get them in.
And this will also be an opportunity at the golf courses. We've spoken about over the years, the golf carts, we want to transition to electric. In order to do that, we need a facility to house them and cover them. And that's something that we can look at as a result of this program, see if we can get essentially carports for the golf carts, house them there, we can transition. So, I mean, I think really just like a lot of sustainability goals outside of solar, like we're kind of a natural partner together. There's just a lot of opportunity for outreach, input, land use, you name it.
And Missy, do you have thoughts about the snow on the panels?
Yeah, it's a good question. So I also have solar and we notice a parallel too. So there are some pretty creative fixes. It depends on where the solar goes. A carport, we can do kind of extended cleaners, if you will, where we can get on top and we can actually brush off. A roof's a little different use case, also depends on how high the roof is. So that's something that we're going to be talking to the manufacturers about not the manufacturers, the installers, about the best mechanism to maintain depending on what they are. Ground mounted systems are going to be a lot easier to clean, right? Effectively extended. I mean, this isn't what it will be, but like an extended broom, if you will. There's special devices that can kind of brush the snow and the ice off. So it's a good point. Kind of depends on the specific installation, how best to maintain. One other thing you didn't ask, but I did want to say too, is in the RFP, we did ask for battery readiness for all of our sites. Some sites are ready now to go for a battery because it makes sense based on their use profile. For those familiar with this, something like a water treatment plant, we're not going to be able to power 100% of on-site usage with solar. But the really significant thing is to peak shave, because their highest usage, like whenever they peak, that's the rate they pay for the whole month. And so anything we can do to lower that is significant savings to the water treatment plant. And the way we do that is through battery. And so it may not make sense at Argo, for example, to have batteries because we're not really using. We'll be over generating likely at that site because we have more potential. So we're evaluating each site to see where we can tie in battery storage to help maximize the generation and the savings we get.
Other questions, Anne?
How does converting or generating solar energy on site at the parks, how does that affect park maintenance and any upkeep costs?
Good question. So one of the beautiful things about solar is it often extends your roof. So we would expect that we would see longer or at least maintained infrastructure replacement timelines. In fact, it might even be longer because you don't have that direct wear and tear on that roof itself, right? The solar's kind of blocking it. The panels are also warranted for 25 years. So if anything goes wrong with those panels, we can call in that warranty and have them be replaced. So that's a delightful addition. And then one of the conversations we're having is how we're going to replace the asset, right? Like how are we going to start saving today? Not all of it, but a portion of the savings that accrue to make sure that we have money in the coffers in 25 years to do the full replacement of that asset. Good question.
Yeah, and then in the evaluation of the sites and the locations, we're involving the maintenance team. So Scott Spooner, who's oversees kind of the maintenance for the parks, he's been involved reviewing these and certainly use them from the lens of, okay, like how are we going to mow around them? Or if they're in a parking lot, how are we going to remove snow? They have obviously benefits, but they also have things that we need to think about as to how we're going to actually maintain around them. So.
Any other questions or comments? All right. Well, it sounds like, Missy, you'll be back to speak with us more in the future as plans continue to come together.
If you'll have me, would be delighted to.
Of course. Yeah, of course we will. Yeah. And thank you so much for coming today and presenting.
Thanks, Missy.
All right, great. Moving on to reports. First, Colin, could you please give us a report?
Yeah, I will provide a little bit of an update, just as I have been on all things related to COVID. Over the last couple of weeks, there's been the latest order from the state removed basically all of the outdoor restrictions. For those of you who may have read the orders in the past, they were extremely long, probably up to 20 pages. It felt like they're basically half the length now because all reference to outdoor activities and restrictions have been removed. So having said that, it takes time to transition back to what you may regard as kind of regular operations, but we are seeing kind of more and more of a return to that, which is nice. For example, yesterday, we actually had the camps start up at Argo, Huron, and Gallup, and they're all full, and kids are happy, and the parents were happy to be able to actually take their kids to camp, you know, and to drop them off there. So that felt good because that was obviously something we missed last year. The swim lessons are up and running, you know, so all of those are kind of welcome signs. There's still ways in which it is impacting us for sure. At the canoe liveries, we're still requiring reservations for the river trips because we do still limit the number of people that are allowed in the vans at any given time, and you're still required to wear the face mask in the vans. So until that changes, we're going to limit the total amount of river trips. Otherwise, we would just have kind of an impossible line situation to deal with. We are not requiring reservations if you want to do just a pond paddle. So that's if you go to Argo and you stay in the impoundment area, or if you go to Gallup and stay in the impoundment area. So able to offer a little bit more there. The volunteer programs for NAP and for Give, they're both, you know, continuing to pick up. They've always been doing something in this, but we're certainly seeing more of an uptick again, you know, from people who are interested to get out and volunteer. So that's exciting to see. There are more kind of events in the parks, again, special events, if you will, you know, graduations and celebrations outside at the park shelters. You know, the numbers for those vary depending on the size of the shelter and the participants. They still have to adhere to what the latest standards are in the order at the time of their event. So potentially July 1st, what, you know, we've heard is that July 1st, the order may just completely go away, right? And if that's the case, then potentially things will start to happen indoors more. It could be that in August, we have some events at Cobblestone. I think we've got a couple on the calendar presently that have not been canceled because we're going to see obviously what happens on July 1st. So again, that would be kind of a milestone to get that in operation again. One of the big ones really right now, and one of the ones which is really hardest, are the outdoor pools. Those opened up Memorial Day weekend, or Fuller actually opened up in the middle of May. And for the first couple of weeks, we operated under the same standards that we did last year because that was what was in place when we had to develop our opening plan. We just started yesterday for kind of the, I suppose I call it the mid phase, where we have more opportunities for admission, but there's still kind of a limited capacity. You're still able to register online in advance, but you are able to pay on the day if the weather's nice and you go up and there's spaces available. So just kind of working through all of that. The outdoor pools are hard to deal with though, because while the order removes all mention sort of outdoor activities and specifically removes any mention of outdoor pools, which used to be in the order as allowed to operate at half capacity. While that's true, there's still kind of operating guidelines, safety practices that we are trying to follow. So trying to find the middle road there is pretty difficult. We're going to see how things continue to go, and we may have to adjust again come July 1st. We obviously want to be able to provide the pools to as many people as possible in a way which is safe. And that's what we continue to work on. Some people are not too happy. They'd like to see them a lot more open than they are, and some people would like to see them less open than they are. So it's a little bit of a delicate balance. One thing related to all of this and kind of our ability just to offer everything at the pools and other facilities, staffing levels are lower than they have been historically. This is not unique by any stretch of the imagination to the city or to parks. You've probably read things in the paper about other places which are having staffing issues. For example, Cedar Point. Cedar Point is closed 2 days a week because they don't have enough staff. And I can't imagine they made that decision easily or lightly. But I asked the Human Resources Department just to run a report to compare applicants year to date this year compared to 2019, so the last kind of pre-pandemic year. From January 1 to June 13th of 2019, we had 1,780 applications. So this year, for the same time frame, we've had 1,127. So it's basically 40% less applicants is significant. And, you know, we're adjusting as we can and sharing staff where we can as much as possible, overtime when it's needed, for sure. But there are, I think, going to be situations where we're not able to offer everything that we typically do because of a staffing level, especially at the pools. You know, the pools have very strict requirements for the amount of people to watch a certain amount of water, etc. If we're short on guards one day, we may have to close one part and keep another part open. So that'll be something that we just continue to work through throughout the summer. That's, I think, it for COVID. Two non-COVID updates. One, I wanted just to say a little bit about the West Park and the band shell. You've, I think, heard from a couple of emails. The band shell is going to be closed for 2021. We are having structural evaluations on it, conducted investigations to get kind of a better idea as to what level of repairs are going to be needed. They are inspected periodically, but this last time through, it certainly showed structural foundational problems. So those we need to come up with a plan for repairs, and we'll obviously bring that back to you. We're also working with Jill Thatcher, who is the staff person for the historic preservation coordinator, because the band shell is a historic structure in West Park. So we need to make sure that we are proceeding with all repairs in a way that is accurate for that. And also looking to explore opportunities for grants that could help to fund those repairs. In terms of the Ann Arbor Civic Band, they are actually still going to be playing their concerts this year at West Park. They are going to play in what I call kind of the patio area, like the patio paver area on the other side of the wetland, but in front of all of the seating in the hill. So there will still be opportunity to hear them, which is great. And hopefully in the near future, they'll be able to be back in the band show. And last item I wanted to share is that this is the first year that the city of Ann Arbor is recognizing Juneteenth as a holiday. And I think that's obviously an important kind of milestone. We also have on the weekend, we're going to have a 1 mile march that starts at Fuller Park and proceeds to Wheeler Park, going through Riverside across the Broadway Bridge and Summit Street to Wheeler Park. And then at the park, there will be food, information, conversation, opportunity to learn about the day, about Juneteenth. And then at 1 o'clock, the Ann Arbor branch of the NAACP will present a Juneteenth virtual program on CTN and YouTube. So you can watch that. You can get more of the details at a2gov.org/Juneteenth for additional details. But if you're around on Saturday and would like to join us, that would be great. That's everything I've got right now.
Great. Thanks, Colin. Any questions for Colin? Anne.
I had a question about the pools. I guess primarily Fuller Pool and the reserving of the swim lanes. I'd heard from a resident that there were maybe some issues with making reservations, and I wondered if there's been any change in the reservation system.
So the reservation system is in place. You can still use that. You are also able to reserve in person the day of. I would suggest if there are any issues reserving, please call the staff there. They're going to be happy to walk you through it. It is not a perfect it is not a perfect system, but it's something that's been put together, I think, to deal with kind of the situation as well as we can do. I understand the frustration with it. I would suggest that they call staff and we're happy to walk you through it.
Thanks.
Yep.
Anything else for Colin right now? All right, Colin, thanks for all those updates. Next is the report from the Recreation Advisory Commission. Patty was unable to attend the meeting today, so we'll look for an update from her next month. Reports from relevant commissions, committees, boards, and/or task forces. The only one I'm thinking about right now is the Center of the City Task Force. And Steve, do you have any updates on that?
The meetings continue apace. I was unable to attend the last meeting on June 3rd, but the outcome there was that we will have a longer working session to explore sort of the short, medium, and long-term visions for the property. So more to come. Watch this space.
Sounds good. Thank you. All right. We do not have any unfinished business today, so we'll move on to new business, where we do have several resolutions. So the first is item 9A, a resolution to recommend approval of a contract with Brock and Associates, Inc. for universal access improvements at Argo Livery for a sum of $579,107. And I understand that Adam Burko is joining us to provide more information. Looks like Adam's coming online right now.
Hi, everyone.
Hi, Adam. Welcome.
Hi, let me share my screen here. Kristen, it is not letting me share a PDF. Can you?
I have you set as co-host, so you should be able to have screen sharing.
It is saying that I am locked by the admin.
All right, just a second.
Yeah.
You could try to email me the PDF. I can see if I can.
Yeah, let me try that real quick here. Sorry about that. me send this to Colin. All right, Colin, I just sent them to you.
Okay.
Do you want to try again, Adam?
Yeah, let me try again. No, it says the host has disabled screen sharing.
Okay.
Still waiting on the email to show up in my inbox here.
Okay.
Has to go all the way from Ann Arbor to Novi.
Would it help if I logged out and came back in, Kristen?
Possibly.
Let me try that. I will be right back.
Okay. Colin, are you able to share your screen? Does it give you the option?
Yeah, let me try that. I still don't have the actual PDF, but let's see. It says, I cannot modify the advanced sharing options as these settings are locked by your admin. So something is different. Sorry about this, folks.
Yeah.
Still not working for me.
Okay, I did get your email, Adam, so, but it doesn't look like I'm able to share either right now, so.
Okay.
Colin, I'm gonna change you to the host.
Okay.
See if that will allow you to share.
I think so. People see anything there?
Yes, I can see that.
I can see that. That's working now.
Okay, Adam, you tell me when you want the slides changed. And
All right, throwing me off my game here to start this. So let's see if we can do it. Okay, so this project I want to talk to you about, I believe Hillary has presented it in the past when we went after a grant, and we are moving into the construction phase, but this is for the Argo Livery Universal Access Improvements Project. Colin, do you want to go to the next slide?
yes.
So what we're talking about is this is on the top side of the Cascades. It's the livery. We're looking at the docks here, kind of this area where people are checking out their tubes and their kayaks. And so this is the area that this project is focusing on. Just wanted to bring that up real quick. You want to go to the next slide? So this section of the river is part of the Huron River Water Trail, which is a 104-mile inland paddling trail. It connects people to the natural environment, history, and the communities that it passes through. It's really an important spot right in the middle of this riverway, right in the middle of the trail. And I mean, it's in Ann Arbor, it's really popular. And I think what's important is we really are getting people kind of from the community into this system. And that's a really important thing to do. Colin, do you want to go to the next slide?
Yeah.
Okay, so what is universal design? So it's the design of buildings, products, and environments to make them accessible for all people, regardless of age, disability, or other factors. It's equitable. It provides the same means for all users. It's identical wherever we can, and where we can't, it's an equivalent experience. We don't want to segregate people or make them feel like they're not part of that experience. So we kind of want to bring everyone together in a way that's celebrated. You're not pushing someone off to the side. We're all in the same boat. And another really important aspect is that universal design makes like a low physical impact or effort for people. You don't want people with disabilities kind of spending all of their energies trying to get to an activity and not be able to enjoy that activity. You want to make it easy enough where they can get in and they can enjoy that river trip. It's not spending everything they have to get into the water. So that's a really important aspect as we move through this. Do you want to go to the next slide?
Whoa.
Uh-oh.
That's hard to find good help.
So there were 5 goals that were identified by the team for this project. Goal 1 was improving access to the river, the Livery site in general, just for all people, regardless of ability. Goal 2 was creating an accessible point-to-point river trip from Argo to Gallup along the Huron. And you know, at Gallup, we have the accessible launch already. So what we would do is an accessible launch and accessible site at Argo allows everyone to enjoy that same experience that so many people in our community do. They'll be able to get into the water and out of the water, and it's not going to become a barrier. It's something that we can all enjoy. And goal 3 is improving accessibility of the site, of the Livery site, the restrooms, the parking lot. You know, the river trip is not the only experience, and it should be from the time you get to the park to the time you leave the park. That's really the experience. It's not just the water itself. Can we go to the next slide? Goal 4 is to use green infrastructure to improve stormwater management. As you can see on the left here, when we get a heavy rainfall, you know, a lot due to that parking lot and not having good drainage, this area gets flooded quite a bit. And so what we want to do is treat that water with rain gardens and kind of just don't allow this to happen and kind of run into the river, but actually kind of capture that stormwater right away. And the last goal is to improve site layout, wayfinding, and user experience, kind of the whole Livery experience in general. I know it can be chaotic there, especially on a Saturday in the summer when it's hot. And so how do we manage this site in a way that doesn't fluster people as much, that they can navigate and get to go where they need to without having much frustration? So next slide. So this was the concept design. I'm not sure if you've seen this before, but this was used to get our grant from the DNR. We were awarded a Michigan Department of Natural Resources Trust Fund grant for this project in the amount of $300,000. I'll kind of walk through the plan real quick. What we'll be doing is getting a new accessible easy launch, which you can see at Gallup Park. So we have that. I think actually that portion might be installed now. We'll be kind of redoing the fishing dock out there to provide like wheelchair seating spaces, make it wider, make it more comfortable than it is right now. We'll be repaving the sidewalks around there so that you don't have kind of the gaps that we have now in dirt spots. It'll all be paved. We'll be paving the parking lot and putting in accessible spaces that are easily identifiable. Right now, it's kind of a free-for-all sometimes out there, and so this will really help kind of solidify what we're trying to get out there. Putting in benches that have companion seating next to it so someone in a wheelchair can sit with their family. Looking at the picnic area and providing like a grill access space so everyone can use a table, so there'll be open spaces. And lastly, kind of looking at renovating the restrooms, putting in some accessible features, kind of adding a couple of cabanas that can be used, which will help everyone in this scenario. We will be the wayfinding. So here in the bottom left, you can see that there's the trail for the remote parking. That won't be accessible, but we'll be putting wayfinding and signage so that can be more used by people who are parking elsewhere to the site. Next slide. So when we issued the ITB for this document, we received 7 bids for the project. Brock and Associates was the lowest responsible bidder. We had 2 other bidders that were a little lower. One did not look at the restroom or the building side. They just looked at sites. And the other, there were some questions in the responsible contractor policy questions. So Brock and Associates, they were highly recommended by several people that we talked to, including the county and some of our own city staff. And work with them would be anticipated to start September 7th, which is the day after Labor Day. So hopefully those crowds will start going down and we can get to work. We don't want to interrupt the heavy summer use. So yeah, their bid came in at $579,107, which is in the resolution. Colin, you want to go to the next slide? Funding is available for this project in the 2022 fiscal year park maintenance and capital improvement millage budget. And also, like I mentioned, we did receive a grant from the DNR for their trust fund. And so that will help cover the cost of this project as well. It's about 50% when you include the design fees and the construction. And the next slide is just the end. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to try and answer them for you.
Thanks, Adam. That was great. And thanks, Colin, for driving slides. Any questions? Mike?
Just a quick one out of professional curiosity. How are you going to handle the stormwater on that site, being that it's so low and so close to the river already and
Yes.
not a lot of space?
Colin, can you go up to the plan? So we've been working with Rowe Engineer on this, and we have a 3-year public or professional services agreement with them, and they've kind of been with us through this whole process. Just north, just north of the parking lot is a bioswale that we're putting in. Is shallow, but what we're doing is trying to get the water into there, and then there's an outflow that will head east if you're looking at this site. And so, you know, a lot of it will end up in the river, but what we're trying to do is at least capture some of that that's coming off of that hardscape. So that is where we are handling the stormwater right now.
I have a question. You guys can hear me. Is Rowe still involved in this project?
Yes. So Rowe helped us do the design. They've helped us manage the grant application. They provided the construction documents, and they will also be assisting through construction administration on it. So it's really nice to have one team that's kind of been there start to finish. And I know they were also involved in our community engagement that was had in, I think it was February of 2019. So they are familiar from start to end, which is a really nice thing to have. And also I should mention Hillary will be back later this fall, and she's been working on this project as well. So she'll be here when the construction is getting underway this September, or I'll probably do it for the first month, but then she'll be back.
Thank you. I think this is probably unnecessary, but just to be careful, I'm going to recuse myself from a vote on this.
You're on mute, Paige.
Sorry. Thanks, Colin. Thanks for letting us know, Rachel. So we'll just let you, you can abstain from the vote on this one. Any other questions or comments? For Adam or Colin, I know, Adam, you said this is going to start September 7th, so right after Labor Day. But there are still river trips happening after Labor Day, right? It's just a drop in attendance?
Right. So
School?
what we typically do is after Labor Day, we run the trips out of, we actually start the trips out of Gallup, we take you up to Argo and we drop you off and then come back down. So the Argo site actually closes after Labor Day on the weekdays. So we'll be able to manage this actually pretty easily within kind of how we do things already.
Got it.
And to follow up on that, we try to limit construction on the weekends. So when people are here on Saturdays, we will not be running construction. I mean, and the site will be shut down anyway. So.
Okay, good. Any other questions or comments? Ian?
Will the trails through there remain open during the construction? I know those get a lot of use.
Yes, during construction, really just this section will be shut down. But I do see your point connecting to like the border to border trail. That's going to be something we're going to have to look at with a detour plan and see how we can get people around there, because yes, part of this will be tore up. Especially when we're looking at, I mean, there's a chance we can get some of the site work done earlier or later and working with it, but we're going to try and make sure that people can still use the border to border, and we'll find a route for them.
Any further discussion, or is there a motion to approve?
I would move to approve Brock and Associates.
Okay, great. Moved and seconded by Steve. Okay. So it's a resolution to recommend approval of a contract with Brock and Associates Inc. for universal access improvements at Argo Livery for a sum of $579,107. Motion by Ann, seconded by Steve. Any further discussion? Okay, all in favor of the resolution, please say aye.
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 All opposed? Any abstentions? One. Okay, great. So the resolution passes with one abstention. So thank you. And thanks, Adam.
Yep.
I'm going to ask you to stick around, please.
Oh, here.
So the next resolution is to recommend approval of a professional services agreement for a Parks ADA compliance assessment and transition plan with Altura. Is that how you say that?
Altura Solutions
LLC for $116,915. So Adam, I'll turn it over to you again.
Yeah.
Have it up on the screen.
Yes, I can see that.
Okay.
So yeah, as you can see, accessibility is something that is important not only to the city and the Parks Department, but I think everyone in general. And it's really important to move forward on and kind of investigate where we are. So real quick, what ADA transition plan is, it's kind of a study of our park system and see where we're meeting ADA, where we might be out of compliance and how we can fix that. So I'll kind of go through that process right now and kind of how we came through Altura, and please ask any questions that you might have. Colin, do you want to go to the first slide? So I thought it was important to kind of step back and look at our A2 Parks core values. I know I've been here for a year, but it's always really nice to kind of come back to these and see what our goals are, what we're trying to accomplish. Like, this really kind of sets the tone for what we do. And our mission is together we enrich lives by cultivating exceptional experiences. The values are stewardship. We responsibly manage and care for our natural, cultural, and physical resources for current and future generations. Exceptional customer service. We interact with all people in a professional, friendly, and respectful manner while striving to exceed expectations. Innovative improvements. We foster an environment that supports and encourages innovation and dynamic creative solutions. Integrity. We build trust and maintain accountability by doing the right thing. Community. We work collaboratively to include and engage the full diversity of our community. Excellent parks and spaces. We provide safe environments, beautiful spaces, and welcoming atmosphere. And the last one is fun. Have fun. And that doesn't just include certain people. Everyone should be incorporated into this. I just thought it was important to kind of look at while we move forward. Colin, you want to go to the next slide? So I thought I'd start with what the ADA is. It became law in 1990. It's a civil rights law that prohibits discrimination against individuals with disabilities in all areas of public life, including jobs, schools, transportation, and all public and private places that are open to the general public. And this is the next part I think is really key, is the purpose of this law is to make sure that people with disabilities have the same rights and opportunities as everyone else. ADA gives civil right protections to individuals with disabilities similar to those provided to individuals on the basis of race, color, sex, national origin, age, and religion. It guarantees equal opportunity for individuals with disabilities in public accommodations, employment, transportation, state and local government services, and telecommunications. It's divided into 5 titles, which are on the right. So we have employment, which is Title 1. Title 2 is state and local government, non-discrimination on the basis of disability in state and local government services. And we'll come back to Title 2. Title 3 is public accommodations, non-discrimination on the basis of disability by public accommodations and commercial facilities. Title 4 is telecommunications, and 5 is miscellaneous provisions. So on the next slide here, I'm just going to touch on Title 2 real quick, and I won't read all of this. I think this bottom part of this paragraph here, it outlines the administrative process to be followed for a transition plan, including requirements for self-evaluation and planning, requirements for making reasonable modifications to policies, practices, and procedures where necessary, architectural barriers to be identified, and the need for effective communication with people with hearing, vision, and speech disabilities. It is regulated and enforced by the U.S. Department of Justice. I just kind of wanted to spell this out right. I mean, this is a requirement by the Department of Justice. There is guidelines that we need to go by and follow. We want to make sure we're following those, and going back to our core values, we want to exceed those. So I just wanted to kind of bring that up right up front. So if you want to go to the next page. So a little background on why we're looking at a transition plan, not just because it is governed by the DOJ, but we do have it identified as a major goal in our PROS plan. Individual accessibility studies, we've had these done at our facilities in the past, but we've never had a systems-wide approach look at accessibility. The ADA transition plan allows us to address accessibility in a proactive manner as opposed to reactive. I just think, like, you know, I've gotten emails in the past where we've had community members ask for accessible swings, which we're always happy to work with them and make sure that everyone has these abilities. But it's also great to get ahead of that and make sure that people don't have to come ask for this. Like, these are things that we want to do, and really get ahead of it. And the last thing is, we don't have currently any Department of Justice complaints from the Parks and Recreation Department. And this is kind of interesting because, and I'll talk about the interviews and the process that we had coming up, but the first question that we received from all consultants was, did we have a DOJ complaint? Because that is the typical reason we do that. We don't have that, and we want to make sure that we're doing this for the right thing, going back to our core values. And that really excited a lot of our consultants, that they were happy to assist someone that's not just trying to skirt by and make sure that they're compliant. They're happy that we just want to do this. Next slide, Colin. So it's quite in depth, this transition plan, but I kind of think it really falls into 6 different components. This first one, evaluation of physical space. This was the first thing that I thought of when you look at an ADA transition plan. It's an investigation of our physical elements within the system. It's being investigated to ensure that we do have ADA compliance. Are slopes okay? Are door pushes? Everything like that. The physical barriers. This final report's going to provide, it's going to list out kind of where we might be falling short or where we're not in compliance. It's going to prioritize what those elements are and help provide actionable items that we can do to get into compliance. So that was really the major thing that I thought of first. The more we delved into this, we learned that so underneath that we have the evaluation of programmatic elements. This is how our programs like camps, classes, and events are held. Are they accessible? Are we holding them at the right facilities? Are there things we can do and transition these kind of programs to places that might make more sense or might be more accessible? And if not, what can we do to make that more accessible? Another component is the stakeholder input and engagement. We don't want this to be a plan that someone's coming in and telling us this is what's wrong and this is how to fix it. We want to hear from the community. We want to hear from those with disabilities. What challenges are they facing? Are there things that they're seeing that might be popping out that we need to address quicker? And really providing a sense of ownership. We want this to be something that everyone's kind of has a say in and helps us kind of define this project. We also have the next component is GIS and database coordination. So findings from this report are going to be digital and coordinated with our CityWorks program. We don't want this to become a binder that says this is a final report. It gets put on a bookshelf. We pull it out and we look at things. We want this to be integrated into our current system and how we operate. And so it's really important to have all of this uploaded so that our park maintenance, our park operations has access to it. And it's something that we're seeing all of the time. And we can update that as we move through this process. Another component is presentations to commissions. We'll be presenting to PAC what our findings are. We'll be working with like the Ann Arbor Commission on Disability Issues, bringing it up there. The Title II requires that there's an open comment period. We don't want to just do that. We want to make sure that we are getting the word out that this is being done. So we want to make sure we're presenting these findings. And then the last component, and I think this is really important, is as well as having this consultant come in and help us with the study, we want to be trained ourselves in how to look up and notice things that are in the ADA plan, like where are we falling short ourselves, and we can document that and kind of take action on that. Next page, Colin. So you all know we have 163 park facilities, nature areas, things like that. And it's not feasible at this time to hit all of these. That would take a really long time and something that we want to work on over time. So what we did is we kind of broke down our facilities, our parks, what's gonna be the most benefit. So we're gonna have all of our recreational facilities here on the left. Those are gonna be looked at. What we consider our community-wide parks: Bandimere, Beer, Burns, Fuller, Gallup, Highland, Olson, Southeast area, Veterans, and West. We're going to have all of those studied. We're going to have those looked at by the professionals. Our neighborhood parks, what we want to do is in each of our wards around the city, make sure that we're looking at a neighborhood park there and this is really for our staff. I mean, I'll probably be one of the trainees, but to be able to go to a neighborhood park and see what's accessible. What do we look at when we go to a neighborhood park? Same with our nature areas. We want to set it up so that we're kind of around the city. We've identified these natural areas that we're going to go to and see what is accessible here. How do we do it? And, part of the training is, and I think there's a lot of fear sometimes that we're going to go pave the natural areas. And that's not necessarily what we mean by accessibility. There are levels of accessibility. And what do we look at when we look at a nature area? And like I said on the bottom here, self-evaluations. After we're trained, our plan and what we anticipate is being able to do these on our parks around the system ourselves and be able to add this to our document. Next page, Colin. Okay, so the selection team, there were 5 of us on there. There was Zach Damon from the Ann Arbor Commission on Disability Issues, Scott Spooner, he's the deputy manager of maintenance, Hillary, myself, park planners, and Jason Nealis, a parks maintenance supervisor. We thought it was important to have planners, our operational staff, people that are in the parks. And so we kind of get these different viewpoints. We thought that was important in the process of selecting who we wanted to help us. There was a request for proposals, or an RFP, that was issued back in March. And we actually received 11 proposals, which was quite a bit more than we were anticipating from around the country. There was quite a bit of interest in this. So we had some really good firms applied that we got to talk to. We had a predetermined set of criteria, and they involved background, work plan, past experience with working with parks. And we scored the top 5, and we went to an interview stage. And I think this is really important. After the interviews, our team kind of got back together, and we unanimously thought that Altura Solutions is the fit. They're the ones that are going to help us do what we need to do. They have On the right here, you can see they have a strong track record of working with park systems. A lot of consultants work with like municipalities as a whole, but they work directly with parks. They're also very familiar with CityWorks, so being able to integrate their findings into our workflow is something that kind of set them apart. They can help us do that. And so we're recommending approval of a professional services agreement with Altura Solutions for $116,915 to help us with this ADA compliance assessment and transition plan. Next slide, Colin. So it's expected to start in September of 2021 and anticipated completion date of spring 2022. And I felt weird writing a completion date of spring 2022 because this is not going to be a complete document. This is going to be something that we want to add to. It's living. It's not going to be complete. It's something that we can continually go back to, but they'll give us that good starting point and a good report in spring of this year or next year. And funding is available in the 2021 Park Maintenance and Capital Improvement Millage budget. So next slide, Colin. I think that's really all I had on this, but I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thanks, Adam. That was a very thorough presentation. Lots of good information there. So, Ruth, do you have any questions?
Not a question. I just want to say kudos to you and the staff for tackling this before there was any complaints. And I'm super appreciative of that.
Thank you. And I know this is something Hillary really pushed, especially when I came on, and I think it's something we're all just really passionate about. And it's a wonderful community, and we want to make sure that everyone feels welcome at it.
Yep, I certainly echo Ruth's comments. Any other questions or comments?
I would move to approve the vendor.
Okay, great. A motion by Lauren to approve. Is there a second?
I'll
By
second.
Mike. Okay, great. A motion by Lauren, a second by Mike to approve a resolution to recommend approval of a professional services agreement for a Parks ADA compliance assessment and transition plan with Altura Solutions LLC for $116,915. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of the resolution, please say aye.
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 Aye. All opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. Resolution passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Adam, for joining us.
Thank you.
Next resolution is to recommend accepting a Fair Food Network grant for the Ann Arbor Farmers Market for $30,000 and appropriate funds. I'll let Colin speak to this one.
Okay, we do not have a presentation for this one. This is the annual resolution that comes to PAC for the program, the Shovel Up Food Bucks program at the farmers market. It provides a match of up to $20 per person per day for customers using EBT or food stamps to purchase Michigan produce. So it's a grant that's super important to us and to the shoppers at the market. It really helps achieve some sustainability. That's a tongue twister. Sustainability goals and also equity goals for the city. I actually am always a little bit surprised to hear, but the Ann Arbor Farmers Market is the largest Shovel Up Food Bucks provider in Washtenaw County. So the need is very real, and this is just a extremely good program that we always want to be a part of. So,
any questions or comments for Colin on this resolution? Anne.
I just wanted to be clear because I'm not familiar with this program. The Parks Department would be accepting a grant. Is that what the resolution
Yes.
is about? And then the Parks Department then operates that fund.
Yep, that's correct.
Got it. All right. Thank you.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. And Colin, we've done this several years in the past, right? This is an ongoing.
Yeah, I think we're probably 6, 7, 8 years into it, honestly. So.
Any other questions or comments or a motion to approve?
I'll move to approve.
Okay, thanks, Mike. A motion to approve by Mike, a second by Anne. So this is for a resolution to recommend accepting a Fair Food Network grant for the Ann Arbor Farmers Market for $30,000 in appropriate funds. We have a motion by Mike, a second by Anne. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of the resolution, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, great. Resolution passes. Thank you. Our fourth and final resolution is a resolution to recommend submitting a grant application to the Michigan Department of Natural Resources Grants Management for the acquisition of land and site improvements along the Huron River at 841 Broadway Street for up to $7 million. I'd like to welcome Derek Delacourt to talk about this resolution. Hi, Derek.
Hey, how's everybody doing this afternoon?
Good, thank you.
Oh, crap. I thought I lost you for a second. Everything went blank.
We're here.
Yeah, that would have been the perfect timing for this. I appreciate the opportunity to be here, in part due to Colin's ridiculously early retirement, and also in part due to the length of time I've been involved with this project since its original inception and most likely all the way through its construction. I think PAC, and I'm going to try to be quick, and then we have a brief presentation, and then I'm available, and Smith Group will be here to answer any detailed questions about the site, and we should be able to answer any questions about the application as well. Recently, the developer and the state of Michigan approached us about the potential for us to submit a acquisition grant through the DNR, which is a trust fund grant. It's very similar to the development grant, only for exactly what it sounds like, and that's the acquisition of property. For a portion of what is commonly referred to as the DTE site, and if people aren't familiar with that, it's the site down under the Broadway Bridge that is owned by Mishcon and DTE for generations, and has sat underdeveloped, contaminated, functionally obsolete, blighted for a significant number of years. The city partnered with the developer who acquired it from DTE to remediate the site, mitigate the site, clean up the contamination, assure the prevention of any offsite mitigation of contamination anymore, and then ultimately the above ground development of the site is dictated by an agreed PUD or supplemental district regulations, which dictates what is allowed to be constructed on that site. As part of that PUD and as part of that agreement, there's a significant amount of open space that's been set aside for the development, and the agreement to endow a conservation group for the long-term maintenance, construction, and monitoring of the amenities that have been agreed to as part of that site. And PAC has been part of that conversation at different times, including a bridge over to Argo, trail connection, access to the river, some supplemental parking associated with the park system for the public. So there's been a whole series of improvements that have been agreed to be constructed by the developer as part of this project, and ultimately that land would be put in a conservation easement and be maintained and operated by that conservancy in perpetuity going forward. Since that time, and one of the things that was discussed all through the project was the potential for the city to actually own a portion of that where the majority of these amenities exist, and potentially own the amenities. That was a part of the conversation from early in the project, and it was made clear that the city did not have the funds, nor was it interested in owning it if the funds had to come out of the park system for those amenities, and otherwise that it would have to be owned by the conservancy that was established strictly from a monetary standpoint. That's what made the recent conversation with the state so interesting, is that it does not alleviate any of the agreements we have with the conservancy and the developer about the long-term operation and maintenance and or the construction of the amenities, but it does offer the city the chance to be awarded grant funds to actually own the riverfront parcel itself, which Smith Group in about 2 minutes here when I shut up is going to walk you through what that parcel entails, and what those amenities are. It does not alleviate any of the agreements that have already been put in place with the developer to endow the conservancy and for the long-term maintenance and operation. But it does give the opportunity at no cost to the city for us to insert ourselves in the ownership of that riverfront piece, which I believe has some significant advantages to the city long-term to actually own in a fee simple manner the ground and the frontage along the river, as opposed to a conservancy and relying on them on their funding to own that. So we're very interested in staff. We've worked with the developer and Smith Group to put together an application that's in conformance with the DNR's requirements for an acquisition grant. Colin's had, I've had, I think we've all had ad nauseum at this point, significant conversations with the state about what constitutes a reasonable application for the acquisition of this property and the amenities that are being developed on it. At this point, we are confident in that application, and we are confident in what is being submitted on behalf of the city. And then that is the point where we approach you and ask you to recommend the actual submittal of the application to council. In this instance, because of timeframes, we did get permission from the state to submit the actual application in the portal prior to having this resolution, but it will not be considered complete, nor will it be reviewed as complete until council passes that resolution. We've also gone through great lengths to make sure that we are not, by any means are we required to accept the funds if awarded, nor are there any black marks on our record, for lack of a better term. If at some point through this process, we choose not to move forward and accept the funds. We are comfortable with where it's at this point and think that the opportunity to own it and to pursue this grant funding has significant value to the city. And as staff are recommending and asking that PAC review it and recommend council submit that application. So that's probably longer than I intended with that. I know we have Cheryl here from Smith Group who has a presentation. Colin, I think you have it now based on the technical difficulties. I don't know if you can share your screen and pop it up there.
Yep, hang on.
Yep, Cheryl's going to walk us through a few slides on what the actual parcel looks like and what the acquisition dollars would be used to purchase.
Okay.
Well, thank you, everybody. Thanks, Derek, for the introduction. My name is Cheryl Zolig. I am a landscape architect at Smith Group, and as Derek said, have been working with the city in Roxbury for many years now on the development of this project. So pretty exciting to be here in front of you guys today. If you can go to the next slide, just want to kind of share some kind of design highlights of the trail and the application itself. What you see in the kind of dark gray is the whole project, the mixed use project, and what's highlighted in the green area is 2.3 acres right directly adjacent to the river, which is the area that's being considered or asked for grant acquisition. This, of course, is the old site of the DTE gasification plant and Argo Cascades, which we were just talking about right on the other side that Adam was just talking about is just to the top of the page or to the north of the page. This project includes several really key recreational connections and habitat connections. The first is a 10-foot wide shared use path that will connect Broadway Park on the east side underneath the bridge over to the Allen Creek berm cut. And then once it connects you to the Allen Creek berm cut, of course, it connects you up to the border-to-border trail over by the Argo Dam. The project also includes 3 proposed river access points. One of those that we call the Huron Steps will be barrier-free, and then the other 2 will be a little further down the river and will be on the riprap that's been installed as part of the remediation, and it will be possible to access it, but we're not allowed to move or change the riprap on the remediation. So those 2 will be, you'll be able to get to the river edge, but it will not be accessible just because of the existing grades in that area. You'll also see the proposed pedestrian bridge that crosses over. It would connect to Argo Cascades. And so that's part of the proposal too on this project. And then I think the other thing that we just wanted to point out in this plan is down towards Broadway Park by some of the mixed use buildings, and we have some imagery of this. The path will have direct access to riverfront dining down along that side, and also direct access to children's play area on that edge of the site. So we have some imagery of that. Just want to go through that. If you can go to the next slide, Colin, that'd be great. So this is a view from the Cascade side. This is what it could look like from the Cascade side, looking across pedestrian bridge to the right, the Huron steps, access down to the river to the left. The park pavilion is outside of this 2.3 acres, as is the water feature and the ice rink that you see in the background of this image. Next slide. This is a perspective of the accessible steps down to the river. So kayaking and other watercraft will be able to launch in this location. Next slide. And then the trail as it goes, as it heads to the east and kind of intersects with where the restaurants will be and where the hotel will be, we'll have direct access. You see steps up to outdoor dining and patio areas, as well as to this children's play area that's right in the foreground there of this graphic. Next slide. And then this is the continuation of the trail as it goes in front of the, between the river and the hotel, and heads down towards, that's the Broadway Bridge that you see in the distance. Next slide. We do have a quick fly through. Colin, if you double click on that, it should actually just go to, so
download
so close.
it. Yeah.
So close to working. The only other way to do it is if you're on, you can sometimes do a cut and paste and put it into your Google and have it connect that way, that link that's right there.
Yeah.
Trying.
I don't think I'm going to be able to get this.
It's all right.
I don't think so either. So
I think they got the gist of what's involved.
Yeah. So happy to answer any other questions that you might have about the design of that space.
Yeah, and I can just add on the back end of it. Where we're at the process now is just completing the application and submitting it. We've shared the estimated costs with the DNR on several occasions to get an understanding of what is an acceptable cost and what's not, what follows this and why it's up to $7 million and not a specific cost is subsequent or after we submit the grant application. There's an appraisal process that goes on. Usually it's towards the end of the process, even all the way back towards award. We've asked the DNR to allow us to pursue that process earlier because we'd like to know what the final amount is. The appraisal process is actually controlled by the city. We'll be the one contracting out with the appraisals to justify the cost. The final grant award will not exceed that appraised cost. So the value of these assets and the land associated with them would be established by that appraisal. The DNR has very specific appraisal requirements that they utilize. We've asked that the appraisers we use have access to the DNR staff to make sure that the appraisal done is done in a manner that's consistent. Just because of the dollar amount, we want to be absolutely sure that not only the value of the acquisition, but that the what's taken into consideration as part of that appraisal is acceptable to the DNR. So that would be the next step after this. Really what we're asking at this point is that we believe there's enough value in this for this conversation to go forward. Many of these amenities, although they are the responsibility of the developer to construct, and this is less of a PAC concern and more of a council concern, many of these items are included as TIF reimbursable items, public infrastructure through the Brownfield program, which means ultimately the amount of time it takes for the general fund to see a positive impact from this project is impacted by how much we pay back the developer for these amenities. The grant being available to pay back some of these amenities allows us the ability to have a conversation with council on how to reduce that TIF, because the grant truthfully pays for some of those amenities that we've agreed to pay back for or reimburse for. That has a tremendous value in an environment where we have a structural deficit with the general fund. So submitting the grant allows us to and if awarded, allows us to have that conversation between council and developer on just how much we can reduce that reimbursement amount, which has a positive effect on the general fund. Like I said, that is less of a concern for PAC. But seeing as the grant money is available and the DNR is willing to participate, we believe there is value in the ownership of this land. We believe the appraisal will establish the accurate value in it, and the ability to have that positive conversation about the general fund make it worthwhile for us to continue this conversation. That's why we're here today.
All right, does anyone have any comments or questions this time? Steve, go right ahead.
I'm curious, does the land come with environmental obligations, or do we buy it sort of in some sort of remediated state?
We buy it in a remediated state, and there's no liability or environmental responsibility to the city. That's all beholden on the group that remediates it.
Other questions or comments? Derek, can you speak just a little more to the timing of this and how we were able to get an exception for submitting this application?
The only answer I have is it was asked and the DNR approved the extension. The timeframes in which we were not comfortable as staff with the timeframes of getting the application in this year and bringing it to PAC. We didn't have the opportunity to ask the questions we felt were important and to become comfortable both with the land value estimate and with the process for appraisal and submittal of the grant application. So the request was made. I spoke with Daniel Lord at the DNR, and they agreed to extend the application deadline. Truthfully, we were surprised, but they seemed to be comfortable with it as long as that initial outline of the application was submitted in time through the portal. They were comfortable waiting for the rest of the details, and specifically for the resolution. They seem to believe there's a great value in using their acquisition dollars on this type of project. So I think they were willing to have the conversation and happy to extend the deadline, at least from the conversations I've had.
Okay, thanks.
Yep.
Any other questions or comments? Ian.
Yeah, I have a question. Is there any kind of a time frame on the agreements that we have in place already with the owner of the rest of the land?
The primary agreement that we have in place is the PUD, or the supplemental district regulations, but the planned unit development agreement, and that actually runs in perpetuity until it's altered. That agreement runs with the land. There's a corresponding development agreement that outlines and provides some of the legalities to that specific agreement. But both of those run with the land, and then the brownfield agreement and the remediation work plan run until that work is completed or that payback is done.
Okay.
Any other points of discussion? Or is there a motion to approve?
I would move to approve it.
Okay, motion to approve by Lauren. Do we have a second? Seconded by Ruth. Okay, so we have a motion to approve by Lauren, a second by Ruth for the resolution resolution to recommend submitting a grant application to the Michigan Department of Natural Resources Grants Management for the acquisition of land and site improvements along the Huron River at 841 Broadway Street for up to $7 million. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
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 All opposed? Okay, the resolution passes.
Thank you. I know this is a big ask and an interesting project, and probably an unusual way for this grant to come forward. So, but we plan on coming back, and I think PAC and council both will have the opportunity to get more detail before they have to make a final decision on whether to accept this money or not. So we appreciate your time. Thank you.
Well, thank you
Thank you.
for coming today, Derek and Cheryl and David, and we look forward to seeing you again.
Great. Thank you. Everybody have a good evening.
Thank you. You too.
Thank you.
Thanks. Moving on to commission proposed business, potential Belize Park renaming. As I think you'll all recall, we did receive a request from some residents in Ward 1 to discuss the possibility of renaming Belize Park. And so Colin can provide us with an update because he's begun to look into what the naming restrictions are on the park and what this process would be like.
Yeah, so I don't have a lot yet, to be honest, but I did reach out to the city clerk. Belize Park is one, or Belize City is one of a number of sister cities for the city of Ann Arbor. And in speaking to the clerk's office, it is still a recognized sister city. So there would need to be some thought and consideration given to renaming a park that is named because of that particular designation. I think it's something I need to find out more about it, but it could be something that is kind of a council initiative. I'm not yet sure what the process is for if you were to undesignate a sister city and just quite how that works. So we need to find out more is the short answer, but.
Okay, well, thank you. I think that's great for today. We just wanted to add it as an agenda topic to acknowledge that it's a discussion or item that was brought to PAC for us to begin considering or thinking about. So no PAC action needed right now. And Colin, hopefully you'll be able to provide us more information at a future meeting.
Yep.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Land acquisition matters. We don't have any today. Our second public comment period. Kristen, do we have any callers during this public comment period?
There are no callers, but there is a little bit of a delay if anyone is watching on the video, so we'll give it just a moment.
No problem. We'll give it a moment. Kristen, why don't you let me know when it's okay to move on, given the slight delay?
Thank you. Okay, there are no callers.
Okay, great, thanks. Moving on to communications, they are included in your packet. We have no need for a closed session. I do want to make one last comment though. I want to thank Mike Apple for joining us today, but also for all of his years of serving as a Parks Commissioner. Mike's term was actually up in May, but we didn't have a May meeting, and our bylaws allow him to continue attending until someone else is appointed in that position. So Mike, a huge thanks to you for being a very involved and active commissioner, and also thank you for representing PAC at the Environmental Commission. Some big shoes to fill, so thank you.
Don't forget to fill them.
We won't fill that. We won't forget. Promise
They will
be
send you
filled.
surprises otherwise.
Yeah, no, Colin and I have noted that it's on our mind, so we'll make sure that that is filled.
Well, thank you all. It's been a pleasure working with all of you.
You'll be missed.
You will be missed. Yes, definitely. And with that, we stand adjourned. So thanks everyone for joining tonight.
Bye.
Bye. Enjoy
Thanks.
the rest of your evening.